Welcome back to another biochemistry classes pertaining with the same molecular biology. We will again go on to certain short notes which can be asked, and it's just few slides that can be shown for today's class, which will be asked as short notes, right? So regarding that, we'll go on to something which we call it as DNA regulatory proteins. Okay, so when we DNA regulatory proteins. Okay, before we go on to what is the DNA regulatory proteins, we will understand what are certain protein molecules which act as regulators. So these have certain factors. So these are like specific factors. Then you have the repressors and you have the activators. So what are the DNA regulatory proteins? These are three types of protein molecules which act as regulators. So these can be specific factors, they can be repressors and they can be activators. So specific factors are proteins which help in recognition of specific initiation site in a gene, such as the sigma factor for RNA polymerase enzyme. Then you have the repressor. These are negative regulatory protein molecules which decreases the transcription by interfering with the RNA polymerase binding to the promoter site. And the activators are positive modulators that increases the rate of transcription and helps in binding to the promoter site. Example for this is the enhancers in the eukaryotes, right? So these are the three important protein molecules which act as regulators. So next we'll see proteins that regulate the gene expression, such as repressors, inducers, enhancers, silencers, etc., need to bind to the DNA with high affinity to specific regions of the DNA. So these show several motifs which are involved in these DNA protein interactions. So all these proteins have some common properties. So the binding is of high affinity and specificity, and only a small part of the protein makes direct contact with the DNA, and the interactions are reversible and involves non-covalent bonding, and this interaction is unique and their functions as a DNA binding protein is very specific. So these are the common properties that can be shown by the proteins which help in regulating the gene, right? So we'll go on to what are the real DNA regulatory proteins. There are some structural motifs. Okay, so we have different proteins under that. The helix turn helix motif. Okay, so this is a crow protein monomer, and each monomer consists of 3 beta sheets, 3 alpha helix. Beta sheets forms a dimer and the alpha forms the DNA binding site. So there are many proteins that show this motifs. Example we have is a lambda repressor, and then you have the cap protein, then you have the tryptophan repressor, which all have the helix turn helix motifs, right? So you just have a look at the diagram of the helix turn helix motifs. So it is a monomer and it consists of 3 beta sheets, 1 2 3 you can see here, and it also consists of 3 alpha helix. You can see these helix here, right? So this forms the dimer, the alpha forms the DNA binding sites. Okay, so this is the helix turn helix motifs, right? Then you have another protein regulator, that is the zinc finger motifs. So these are found in the transcription factor 3A, which requires zinc ions for its activity, and it is made up of 2 to 9 structural domains called as a zinc finger motifs. So each motifs make a finger-like projection due to the tetrahedral coordination with the zinc ions. Either the 4 cysteine residues are involved in the linkage with zinc atom, or it may involve a pair of cysteine residues and a pair of histidine residues. So the protein binds on one face of the DNA and does not encircle it, and successive fingers on the protein interacts with the DNA in one turn in forming a major groove. So examples under this you have is the steroid, thyroid receptor proteins, and then you have the calcitriol receptor proteins show this type of motifs, that is the zinc finger motifs. So in the next slide you can see the zinc finger motifs. So what is it? The zinc ions which are present, they bind with 4 cysteine residues, or it can also bind with the histidine residues, and then the two turns of the motifs forms the major groove, right? So this is the zinc finger motifs, right? So these are the finger like protrusions that are formed by the zinc finger motifs, right? So next we have one more which we call it as a leucine zipper. It is found in the C-terminal domain of several regulatory proteins. So the C-terminal forms an alpha helical domain in which every 7th amino acid is leucine. So there are 8 helical turns for having 4 leucine repeats in this motifs, and there are 2 monomers that reacts with through the leucine motifs to make a zipper cord. Okay, so it is made up of a zipper, so it is called as a leucine zipper. So it is a dimer and can form homodimers or heterodimers. Example of this is CFOS and C-Jun, and C-Jun and C-Jun dimers are formed. Okay, so it can be either homodimer or an heterodimer. So next we'll have a look at the DNA regulatory protein. This is the leucine zipper. So you can see the leucine residues here. This is the amino terminal. This is the C terminal. You can find the leucine residues here, and you can see the zipper kind of motifs structure you can find here, right? So it has been made up of 8 helical turns having 4 leucine residues, right? So these two are the monomers. It reacts through the leucine motif to form the zipper leucine zippers. Okay, so this is the leucine zippers, right? So you have 3 types of protein regulatory proteins, right? So next we'll go on to what are the co-regulators and what are the activators which we can find in as a DNA regulatory proteins. So there are 3 classes of transcription factors which are involved in transcription of the mammalian genes. These are the basal component, you have the co-regulators, and you have the activators. So the basal component is nothing but the Tata binding protein, the transcription factors 2A, B, E, F and H, right? And then you have co-regulators, that is TAF transcription factor 2D, and then you have the chromatin modifiers. Then the activators are SPI, ATF, and you have API as the activators for the DNA regulatory proteins, right? So this is about the co-regulators and the activators. So the others that we know is the inducers and induction and repression, right? So positive regulation of the gene expression leading to increase in the concentration of its product, we call it as induction. So the molecular signal causing the changes, we call it as a inducer. Example, you have the DNA repair enzyme genes are inducers or induced in response to the DNA damage signals, right? Then you have the negative regulation of gene expression by molecular signals leading to a decrease in the concentration of the gene product, which we call it as repression. Then you have the regulatory molecule that is leading to repression. We call it as repressor. However, a double negative regulation leads to a net positive effect. Okay, so this is positive regulation and negative regulation, right? Then you have certain types of regulatory response. So what are these? There are three types of responses that can be seen: the type A response, type B response, and the type C response. So the type A response is seen as long as the signal is present and effect is lost as soon as the signal is removed. So this effect is reproducible. And then you have the type B response to the molecular signal is transient, but the response is not seen in its absence and is not duration dependent, and it is reproducible. Then you have the type C response. The molecular signal induces a long lasting and often irreversible response, and it lasts even when the signal is removed, and many times the responses are inherited. So the types of regulatory responses of three types: type A response, type B response, and type C response, right? So when we talk about the DNA proteins, the regulator, the inducers, and the repressors, you should also know what is the role of the promoters, right? So what are the promoters? These are each gene has a promoter to guide the proper binding of the RNA polymerase enzyme for correct initiation of the transcription. So the binding affinity of RNA polymerase to the promoter is dependent on the sequence present in the 35 and the 10 upstream base pairs regions in the prokaryotic promoters. Okay, so a promoter having consensus sequence in this region has the highest binding affinity, and the rate of transcription, on the other hand, a promoter having very little similarity to consensus sequence has a low binding affinity towards the RNA polymerase and a lower rate of transcription. So what do you understand by consensus sequence? So these represents a sequence derived from bases occurring most frequently at a particular position. Okay, so it is the most derived basis occurring most frequently at a particular position. For example, you have the E. coli promoter recognized by RNA polymerase holoenzyme containing sigma 70 subunit and has a consensus sequence in 35 and 10 base pair region. Okay, so this is the consensus sequence that is identified by the RNA polymerase holoenzyme. Then in the eukaryotic, the promoters are complex, so you require additional regulatory sequences present in them, like the enhancers and silencers, which either regulate the gene expression or increase the gene expression or decrease the gene expression. So if there is any mutation in the regulatory sequences, this leads to increase or decrease in the rate of transcription. Okay, so this is about the promoter sites. So next we'll understand what is an enhancers. So enhancers in the DNA are the binding sites for activator proteins, and enhancers have certain characteristics, right? So these are they may be made up of 1,000 base pairs from the gene. They may be located upstream, downstream, or within an intron of the gene that has been controlled by. The orientation of the enhancer sequence with respect to the gene is not important. The enhancer can appear to act in a tissue specific manner if the DNA binding proteins that interact with them are present only in certain tissues and may be brought close to the basal promoter region in space by bending of the DNA molecule. So these are all the characteristics of the enhancers. So similar sequences that bind to the repressor protein in eukaryotes are called as the silencers. There are many fewer examples of these sequences known, and the mechanism through which they act are not clear till now, right? So enhancers, you can see in this particular diagram, the DNA structure, you have an enhancer to which there are specific transcription factors that are bound. Along with it, you have the RNA polymerase 2. Then you have the general transcription factors and also the transcription factor 2D, and this gets attached to the promoter site, that is the Tata box. And then you can see here the bending of the DNA structure. This is the transcribed region, and this increases the rate of transcription. Okay, so this is the importance of enhancer. Okay, so when this is about the promoter site, the enhancer. Okay, so next we'll study about something which is called as a chromatin remodeling. So what do you understand by chromatin remodeling? It is a process of structural changes occurring in the heterochromatin to become euchromatin is called as a chromatin remodeling. So this includes precisely regulated enzymatic mechanism to modify the histone proteins by using ATP for energy. Okay, so the main mechanism includes acetylization and deacetylization of the core histone proteins through specific enzymes called as the histone acetyltransferase enzyme 1 and 2. This we can write it as HAT and HAT1 and HAT2. So that is histones acetyltransferase enzyme 1 and 2. So these are also present as histone deacetylase to reverse the acetylization process. Methylation of the H3 of histone is also involved in the chromatin inactivation. So the amino terminal domains of the core histone proteins are rich in lysine arginine residues. So the lysine residues are acetylated by the cytosolic HAT enzyme in the newly synthesized histone proteins before they are imported into the nucleus from the cytoplasm. So subsequently, these are assembled into chromatin with the help of additional proteins such as chromatin assembly factor 1 and nucleosomal assembly factor protein 1, okay, that is NAP1. So these help in the organization of the or assembling of the chromatin. So when the chromatin is highly activated for transcription, the nucleosome histones are further acetylated by the nuclear HAT enzyme. So by this, when the transcription is not required, acetylization of the nucleosomes is reduced. So by histone deacetylation enzymes, this occurs as gene silencing mechanism. So by this, that restores the chromatin to transcriptionally inactive heterochromatin. So now when this heterochromatin is increased in methylation of the 9th lysine residue in the histone, the chromatin remodeling also requires protein complexes which actively moves the nucleosomes using energy obtained from the ATP hydrolysis. Okay, so there are several protein complexes are also involved in creating the active chromatin. Example you have is the SWI, and then you have SNF complex, and you have the NURF enzyme complex. So this is about chromatin remodeling. Okay, So chromatin remodeling also can come as a short answer or a short essay, right? Then you have one more short answer for today's class, that is epigenetics. So what do you understand by epigenetics? It is the changes that refer to occurring in the DNA or the proteins without alteration of the nucleotide sequences or the amino acid sequences. So usually these are post replication or post translational changes that occur after the formation of the functional DNA or protein molecules. So besides the mutation, epigenetics changes are being increasingly detected in cancer. So examples of epigenetic changes include DNA methylation of specific cystosine residues in the genes, and this can lead to turning off or on of the genes. So another example is the post-translational modification of the histone proteins. Acetylation of the histone H3 and H4 are known to affect the gene expression. So these changes have been detected in the cancer cells, and many epigenetic changes are reversible. In fact, some new drugs are being developed on this basis of reversal of epigenetic changes and are used in certain types of lymphomas and leukemias. So examples of the drugs that are being used are 5-azar-deoxycytidine is an inhibitor of methyl transferase, and then you have one more, suberal anilate hydroxamic acid, or we call it as SAHA, or vorostat. It deacetylates the histones. So these can be used in the lymphomas or in the leukemias. Okay, so this is about epigenetics. So epigenetics also can come as a short answer. So you have to write little bit about the introduction and what are the two methods by which there can be changes, and give examples of the drugs that can be used in lymphomas and leukemias, right? So whatever topics we taught today, the regulatory proteins, the enhancers, role of promoters, epigenetics, and then about the chromatin remodeling, all these can come as short answers or short essays that can be for 5 marks or 3 marks. Okay, so this is about the short answers for today's class. In tomorrow's class we'll discuss some more topics which can come in the molecular biology for short answers. Okay, thank you.